Ready to dive headfirst into a tale of retribution with me. Every soul who wronged our heroine in her previous life. Not one escapes justice in this one. Buckle up and hold tight. We're about to begin. I opened my eyes in a daze, my gaze falling upon that all-too-familiar rosewood screen carved with peonies in full bloom. I had returned to that day, the very moment when the old matriarch of the Duke's Manor was about to arrange my marriage. The elderly lady sat turning her prayer beads, her face bearing that identical expression of benevolent warmth, as she asked gently, "Child, what do you think of my grandson? In my previous life, I was merely a merchant's daughter, looked down upon by society. To secure this match, I had schemed and plotted endlessly. I got my wish and married into the illustrious Duke's Manor, only to discover it was the beginning of a nightmare. Throughout 10 years of marriage, Anidan never once gave me a kind look. His revulsion clung to me like a disease eating into my bones. No amount of humility or submission could erase it. Eventually, to make room for his beloved, he personally brought me a bowl of poison and forced me to end my own life. Reborn into this second chance, I gazed at the wealth and privilege before me with nothing but ice in my heart. This time, I would not marry him. That path paved with thorns and stained with blood, I would not walk it again. I would forge a new route, one that belonged to me alone. I drew a deep breath, suppressing the hatred churning within, and performed a graceful curtsy with impeccable etiquette. I am grateful for the old matriarch's kindness, but this humble girl knows her limitations. I am neither talented nor learnt enough to be worthy of cousin Pei, who is as noble as the clear wind and bright moon. The moment I finished speaking, the room fell silent. From the corner of my eye, I glimpsed Pei Zhan's expression, those eyes that had been brimming with disgust, now cracked open with a flash of astonishment. I knew what he was thinking. In Pei Zhan's eyes, I had always been a vain, calculating social climber, desperate to marry above my station. In my past life, when the old matriarch proposed the match, though I feigned composure, the wild joy in my eyes was impossible to conceal. After all, I had spent months swallowing my pride, scheming to win the old lady's favor, all for this very moment. But now, watching his bewildered expression, an indescribable satisfaction rose within me. Since you despise me to your core, Pei Zhan, I shall grant your wish. I will no longer play the lovesick fool grasping at your coattails. I dropped to my knees on the cold brick floor and knocked my forehead against the ground in a resounding kowtow before the old matriarch, my voice clear and resolute. Old matriarch, this commoner has decided to sit for the Imperial Women's official examination. I wish to enter the palace and serve the nobility. I have no desire to be entangled in romantic affairs. In my previous life at this moment, I had been hunched over my writing desk, penning a letter to my parents with unbridled joy, telling them that Pei Zhan had finally agreed to marry me. Every line brimmed with anticipation for our wedding day. But had I not been driven to absolute desperation, why would I have attempted such social climbing? I had wanted what my parents wished for me, to marry someone of equal standing, who would treat me well, to raise children, and live an ordinary, peaceful life. But fate had other plans. The year I came of age, a notorious rake from a powerful family set his sights on me, determined to make me his 18th concubine. This man was cruel and sadistic. Rumor had it that countless women had died under his torment, their bodies carried out without a single patch of unmarred flesh. Me parents were terrified. They begged everyone they could think of, even kowtowing until their foreheads bled, but found no help. In desperation, I forced myself to stay calm and invoked a distant connection, however tenuous, to the Duke's Manor as my shield. I have privately pledged myself to Pei Zhan, the heir of the Duke's Manor. We have already promised ourselves to each other 3 months. If Pei doesn't come to marry me within 3 months, young Master Gao may do with me as he pleases. The capital was far from the emperor's reach. I assumed my audacious claim, my brazen association with Pei would never reach the ears of that lofty personage, and that young Master Gao was a bully who preyed on the weak. Hearing my words, he believed them somewhat, though his lecherous gaze still raked over me. Fine, I'll give you 3 months. But if Pei doesn't claim you, I'll have you stripped naked and carried into my manor. Then you'll discover what I am capable of. To survive, I took all my family's savings and, under the pretext of celebrating the old matriarch's birthday, entered the Duke's manor alone. The first time I met Pei face to face, I had barely finished my greeting when I caught the flash of disgust in his eyes. Only later did I learn that Pei holding such a high position, had eyes and ears everywhere. Few matters in the capital escaped his notice. The proud and noble young Master Pei had been slandered by me, a lowly merchant's daughter, accused of having an affair with someone beneath him. I had made him the subject of gossip and ridicule. His hatred for me had taken root long before I ever stepped through the Duke's manor gates. "Miss, it is ready. Please see if it fits." The maid's crisp voice pulled me from my thoughts. I returned to the present and looked at myself in the bronze mirror, now dressed in the formal crimson kuju robe. I took a deep breath and began practicing the palace etiquette I had learned, going through each movement meticulously. 2 months ago, the imperial consort had been seeking a female tutor for the third princess. The notice was clear: birth did not matter, only merit. Any woman from a respectable family with an unblemished background, virtuous character, and exceptional talent could apply. Those who passed the women's official examination would be appointed. At that time, Pei despised me, and I wasn't confident the old matriarch would ultimately choose me. To give myself another way out, I secretly registered for the examination. After the results were announced, I would immediately enter the palace to meet the nobility. I had to be flawless. Not a single mistake could be made. Just then, a commotion erupted outside. "I want to see which shameless wretch dares to publicly refuse marriage to Brother Pei." A shrill, imperious voice rang out, followed by the door being violently flung open. A young woman dressed in opulent finery, her hair laden with jewels, stormed in with an air of aggression. She was strikingly beautiful, like a peony in full bloom, though the malice in her expression marred that beauty. Pei followed close behind, standing beside her with a look of helpless indulgence. The young woman spotted me and immediately glared, pointing at my nose. "So you are the ungrateful commoner. Why aren't you kneeling before this princess?" I lowered my eyes, concealing the emotions roiling within. This wasn't my first encounter with the eldest princess. In my past life, at every banquet, gathering, or even family feast at the Duke's manor, whenever she was present, she found ways to humiliate me. Back then, I thought she was simply spoiled and willful, the temperament of imperial nobility. I never imagined she targeted me because of Pei and that eventually her malice would drive her to poison me. I took a deep breath, forcing down the hatred in my eyes before slowly raising my head. Meeting the princess's gaze with neither civility nor arrogance, I spoke calmly. "I don't know who this young lady might be. You and Master Pei have barged into my private chambers without announcement. Such discourteous behavior hardly befits propriety. Does it? Shouldn't you apologize first?" The princess's willow leaf brows shot up in fury, as if she'd heard the most absurd joke. "What are you to demand an apology from me? How dare you speak to me this way? You are courting death." She raised her hand, a gust of wind accompanying the motion, as she aimed to slap me. "Changyi, stop." Pei finally intervened, though his tone carried little reproach. The princess didn't halt her momentum. The slap still came down hard. I had anticipated this and nimbly dodged by turning my head. When I looked up, I saw that though Pei had grabbed the princess's wrist. He hadn't used any real force. The princess stamped her foot in frustration, her eyes reddening as if she'd suffered a terrible injustice. "Brother Pei, are you going to protect this vile woman? She dared to publicly refuse you, making you lose face and become the laughingstock of the capital. I am only trying to teach her a lesson for you. You promised me before, no matter what happened, you'd always stand by my side and protect me forever. Have you forgotten?" A flicker of helplessness crossed Pei-Jan's eyes. He gently released her hand and said softly, "Don't be so willful. If word gets out, it will damage your reputation." Then he turned to me, the warmth in his eyes instantly vanishing, replaced by icy command. "Kneel, this is Her Highness, the eldest princess." My fists clenched so tightly within my sleeves that my nails nearly broke. I knew that in this moment, circumstances were stronger than people. This wasn't the time for defiance. I slowly bent my knees and knelt on the floor, head bowed. "This commoner greets Her Highness, the eldest princess." Slap, a crisp sound rang out. The princess couldn't restrain herself after all. Unexpectedly, she struck me again. This time, I couldn't avoid it. Kneeling on the ground, my cheek burned with pain, and I tasted blood at the corner of my mouth. Seeing this, Pei-Jan didn't help me up. Instead, he sighed helplessly and reproached me. "You spoke out of turn just now and offended Her Highness. It is only right that she disciplines you. Accept it." I jerked my head up, staring directly into Pei-Jan's eyes devoid of any guilt, and asked, enunciating each word, "May I ask, Master Pi, what constitutes an offense? The saying goes, ignorance is not a crime." After learning that Her Highness had arrived, I immediately knelt respectfully in greeting. Moreover, I wished to ask Her Highness, the matter between Master Pei and myself concerns marriage between a man and woman, which requires mutual consent. Since neither of us is married, on what grounds does Her Highness presume to discipline me? In my previous life at this point, the princess had already been married. Her affair with Pei-Jan was something that couldn't see the light of day, something that would be condemned by society. Sure enough, hearing my words, the princess's face faltered, her eyes flickering with evasion before she shrieked defensively. "How dare you, you shameless woman!" Pei-Jan's expression darkened dramatically as he rebuked sharply. "Enough. Shen Qingqi, stop spouting nonsense. The princess and I share a bond of siblings cultivated over many years, pure and innocent. How dare you slander us?" I had never seen Pei-Jan so furious, almost losing his composure. I knew this was his humiliation at being exposed, his attempt to cover up the truth. He and the princess were in love, had long been secretly involved. But because the Pi family wielded too much power, the emperor would never approve their marriage. He wouldn't allow the Pi family to gain another layer of imperial connection. For some reason, watching them both squirm brought a dark satisfaction rising within me. The princess's chest heaved violently, clearly incensed. Suddenly, her gaze fell upon me. As if finally catching me in an error, her expression turned triumphant, and she pointed at me shrilly. "Look, what you are wearing, that is the Kuju robe only palace women officials may wear. How audacious to privately replicate official garments. According to law, this crime carries 3 years imprisonment. Brother Pei, quickly have her arrested and thrown in jail." My heart lurched. Indeed, such a law existed. This was a vulnerability I'd carelessly left exposed. But I forced myself to remain calm, drew a deep breath, and spoke clearly in my defense. To my knowledge, according to our dynasty's laws, those who replicate official garments and use them for fraud or illegal profit are subject to punishment. I wore this only in private to practice for my audience with the nobility, fearing I might commit a breach of etiquette. I have neither profited from it nor caused any harm. I humbly submit that this action shows not wrongdoing, but reverence, hardly a grave offense. The matter could be interpreted as serious or trivial, depending on how the judging official chose to rule. As the saying goes, if you want to condemn someone, you'll never lack a pretext. My heart pounded with anxiety, fearing Peijan would seize this opportunity to have me arrested and destroy my future. Peijan fell silent for a moment, his gaze heavy as he looked at me, then spoke coldly. What a silver tongue, truly sharp-witted and glib. His eyes lingered on the Kuju robe I wore, his tone dripping with sarcasm. You are that confident. You think you'll definitely pass the women's official examination. For some reason, his focus had shifted to this point. But relief washed over me. I knew that, given his status, he wouldn't use a mere garment as grounds to make things difficult for a defenseless woman. Whether I pass or not, everything will be clear when the results are announced. Hearing this, Peijan let out a cold laugh, his eyes brimming with contempt. Ugly people cause the most trouble. Why don't you look in a mirror and see what you are worth? The position of women's official, how could someone like you even dream of it? Pure delusion. I knelt on the ground in silence, keeping my spine ramrod straight. 2 days remained until the results were posted. During those 2 days, I stayed in my room, my heart strangely calm as I packed my belongings piece by piece. On the day of the announcement, regardless of the outcome, I would leave the Duke's manor. This place had long ceased to be my refuge. On the day the results were posted, I squeezed into the bustling crowd at dawn yet. Despite having memories from my previous life and knowing the outcome, my heart still fluttered with anxiety, fearing some unexpected turn of events. After Peijan and the princess left that day, he had returned alone to find me, his expression mocking, his bearing superior. Shen Qingqi, you are making all this fuss about the examination just to get my attention, to make me look at you, aren't you? Fine, I've already agreed to marry you. You don't need to keep playing these games to test my limits. I had laughed, then laughed until tears nearly came. In my past life, I would have done anything to latch on to him, even if it meant being crushed to dust. But now, I only wanted to avoid him, terrified of any connection. At the same time, I was surprised. He was young Master Pei, who despised me utterly. How could he possibly volunteer to marry me? I've reached the age where I should take a wife. I need a wife, in name, to silence wagging tongues, and the old matriarch thinks highly of you. But there is someone in my heart, you know this. As long as you agree not to pester me after marriage and dutifully play your role as Lady Pei, I'll marry you and guarantee you a lifetime of wealth and honor. Peijan spoke coldly, as if bestowing upon me the greatest favor. So that was it. That had been his plan all along. That is why, in my previous life, he neglected me for 10 years after our marriage, remaining chaste for the princess, leaving me childless and withering away in loneliness. I refused coldly, without hesitation. Number, rather than marrying and living at someone else's mercy. I'd prefer to stand on my own merit. Perhaps my attitude was too harsh, wounding young Master Pei's pride. He had lowered his noble head to propose, and I had the audacity to refuse. Humiliated and enraged, he swept his sleeves and stormed off, leaving behind a parting threat. Then do as you please. When you fail the examination and come crawling back in disgrace, don't expect me to even glance at you, even if you are on your knees. The next day, rumors spread through the capital that he was preparing to marry another noblewoman. It made sense. Since he couldn't marry his beloved princess, it didn't matter whom he wed, they were all just ornaments to him. But now, his affairs had nothing to do with me. I nervously clenched my hands, palms slick with cold sweat, as my eyes scanned the posted results line by line. I had no fallback plan now. Behind me lay a bottomless abyss. This step could not go wrong. Yet, when my gaze fell upon the top name, I froze as if struck by lightning. The first place wasn't mine. The position that should have been mine bore someone else's name. My name appeared in second place, but the third princess's tutor was always chosen from the top candidate alone. The sun blazed overhead, its poisonous rays scorching the earth. Yet I felt cold all over, my teeth chattering uncontrollably. I couldn't believe fate would play such a cruel joke on me. How could this be? Why was it different from my previous life? If I failed, I would have to face that degenerate surnamed Gao. Becoming his concubine wasn't just humiliation, it was a death sentence. I thought of my parents back home, their hair turned white with worry over my marriage prospects. In my panic, a thread of regret crept into my heart, regret for my stubbornness. Perhaps if I had agreed to marry Pei-Zhan, as long as I was careful and didn't drink that poison, I could have survived. Without children, so be it. I could adopt a child from the clan later. But there are no arrows that turn back mid-flight, no medicine for regret in this world. Forcing myself to calm down, I took out all the banknotes I had and quietly slipped them to a minor official overseeing the examination, asking about my failure. The official pocketed the notes, weighed them, then snorted and lowered his voice. The grading was fair and impartial, no foul play. You had a chance at first place. Your essay was genuinely excellent, but Master Pei specifically reviewed your paper. He said your essay on teaching the young princess how to conduct herself was too aggressive and sharp-edged, lacking the wisdom of restraint. As a woman, you should overcome hardness with softness, repay grievances with virtue that is the proper way. So he demoted you to second place. In that instant, my ears rang, and all the blood in my body seemed to rush to my head. I never imagined it would be Pei-Zhan sabotaging me from behind. Yes, I had schemed against him, tried to use him to escape being forced into concubinage and tortured to death. But I hadn't actually harmed him. If he didn't want to marry me, even the old matriarch couldn't force him to agree. Moreover, he knew the desperate straits I was in, that I had nowhere left to turn. He was cutting off my only path to survival. He was forcing me to my death. The hatred from 2 lifetimes merged into a roaring inferno, incinerating my reason. Heedless of everything, I rushed to the gates of the Metropolitan Prefecture, seized the drumstick, and struck the great drum for redress with all my might. Boom, boom, the heavy drumbeats echoed through the heavens, each one pounding against my heart. Even knowing that commoners who sued officials would be punished with 20 lashes before the trial even began, I would still fight for justice. The thunderous drumming drew more and more onlookers, pointing and whispering. Pei-Zhan's servant somehow pushed through the crowd, drenched in sweat as he frantically tried to stop me, pleading in a low voice. "Miss Shen, why must you do this? Why be so stubborn? The master said that if you just soften your stance and go back to beg him, he'll still marry you. You won't have to worry about that scoundrel harming you. Get lost," I roared, shoving him aside. While continuing to beat the drum with all my strength, I shouted at the top of my lungs. I Shen Qingxi, accused Pei-Zhan, Vice Minister of Rights, of corruption and bias in examination grading, of using his power to force a respectable woman into concubinage. I beg the honorable magistrate to deliver justice. From the judge's bench, at this moment, I truly want to applaud our heroine. Do you see it, everyone? This is what I admire most about our protagonist. She'd rather die on her feet than live on her knees. Pei-Zhan thought that by destroying her prospects, she'd meekly return and beg him. Dream on. This kind of self-righteous hypocrite deserves to be thoroughly humiliated. When commoners sue officials, the odds of success have always been slim. Moreover, examination grading is inherently subjective. As the saying goes, there is no definitive first in literature, no definitive second in martial arts. Winning against Pei Zhan would be as difficult as ascending to heaven. But I had to take this gamble. If I won, I'd earn a path to fame that would resound throughout the realm, and the sky would be my limit. If I lost, I'd end up in a dark prison, but perhaps even that would be safer than falling into that pervert's hands. Crack! The heavy rod whistled through the air and struck my body with brutal force. Searing pain shot through me instantly. I bit down hard, cold sweat soaking through my clothes, but I refused to make a sound. Even so, the excruciating agony made my vision swim with darkness. Though Pei Zhan was the defendant, his official rank, and the emperor's favor meant the metropolitan prefect dared not easily offend this powerful figure. He could only nervously arrange a chair for Pei Zhan to sit and observe the proceedings. Pei Zhan sat there holding a teacup, his gaze profound as he watched the young woman lying across the punishment bench, enduring the beating without so much as a whimper, despite her stubborn pride. In that moment, fragmented images flashed through his mind. He seemed to remember that in his previous life, she had possessed this same temperament. Even later, when his attitude toward her had softened somewhat from its former coldness, when he tried to thaw the frozen relationship between them, she had remained distant and aloof, respectful as a stranger, unwilling to speak a single warm word to him. If only she had been willing to soften, to yield just a little. How could he have treated her that way? A bitter smile tugged at Pei Zhan's lips, his expression complex. Indeed, if she were willing to yield, she wouldn't be Shen Qingxi Crack. Crack! The rod fell again and again, the dull thuds making even the spectators wince. For some reason, watching her face turn pale as paper, Pei Zhan felt an inexplicable ache in his own heart. But he had always acted with fairness and believed he'd done nothing wrong. In that examination paper, her thinking truly was too radical, contrary to proper feminine conduct. Besides, he couldn't find a reasonable pretext to publicly halt this mandatory punishment. So be it. Let this be a lesson. It might teach her not to be so recklessly audacious. You accuse a fourth-rank court official. Do you have evidence? Number I knelt on the ground, enduring the pain while keeping my spine straight. Of course I had no evidence. I could hardly say I'd been reborn, and the results differed from my previous life. Without boasting, I believe my talents are not inferior. I don't accept the examination ranking. Moreover, according to law, examiners with personal connections to examinees must recuse themselves. I refused Master Pei's marriage proposal. Master Pei harbors a personal grudge. I submit that Master Pei deliberately failed me due to personal resentment. Every one present wore expressions of scandalized fascination. Outrageous. You, a mere merchant's daughter, claim you refused the Duke's manor heir. This is utterly absurd. Have you lost your mind? Indeed, who would believe that I, a woman of humble merchant origins, would refuse Pei Zhan? Had it not been for my tragic end in my previous life, I too would have thought marrying into the Duke's manor was extraordinary fortune. At this moment, Pei Zhan, one of the principals in question, lowered his eyes, lost in thought. He must be furious, I thought, having such a humiliating rejection broadcast to the world. I waited for him to angrily refute me, but he didn't. He gazed at me and stated calmly, "What she says is true. The refused proposal is fact." Everyone was stunned, including me. This wasn't like Pei Zhan. He met his eyes and found that the youthful naivety had vanished, replaced by an unfathomable still depth. I knew then he had been reborn too. Me opponent now was a Pei Zhan who had lived 2 lives, weathered and tempered by experience. The difficulty level had just increased. However, my grading was not biased. Whether imperial daughters or common women, feminine virtue is the foundation of one's character. Virtue and grace are the legacy passed down through generations. Women should embody benevolence and magnanimity, transforming jealousy with kindness, overcoming hardness with softness, repaying grievances with virtue. But you, Miss Shen, you are sharp-tongued and combative, lacking virtue and propriety. Therefore, you are unsuitable for appointment. Pei-Zhan stared at me. These words were aimed directly at me. In my previous life, I had eliminated the parasites in the Duke's manor who bullied the weak. Yet he accused me of being ruthless and lacking compassion. He never considered that without my ruthlessness, how could his household have remained peaceful, his official career smooth? Every time the princess deliberately humiliated me, I responded with dignity yet to protect his beloved. He ignored right and wrong, always demanding I swallow my anger. He even made me kneel for 3 days and nights at the princess's manor in humiliating apology. But reborn into this second life, this existence was borrowed time. This time, I decided to follow my heart in all things. I looked directly at him. I hold a different view. If Master Pei truly believes himself impartial, would he dare engage in scholarly debate with me? If I win, I ask that Master Pei restore my rightful ranking. Impudent. The women's official examination is no trifling matter. You can't simply change it at will. Yet to the prefect's jaw-dropping astonishment, Pei-Zhan replied coolly, "Granted." Having been husband and wife for 10 years, I understood Pei-Zhan's temperament perfectly. He considered himself righteous. Even if he had changed the grading due to personal grudges, he would cloak it in the mantle of justice and make me accept defeat wholeheartedly. Furthermore, the women's official examination wasn't as rigorous as the imperial examinations, so he agreed, but I wouldn't let him win. The core of this debate was simple. Should one repay grievances with virtue or repay them with directness? Men fought tooth and nail for power and position, yet always demanded women be gentle and virtuous, treating their husbands as heaven itself. They could keep dreaming, but naturally, I couldn't phrase it that way. Standing in the righteous court, I cited classics and precedents, consistently arguing that one should repay grievances with directness, and that imperial daughters especially should not lose their dignity. I systematically refuted each of Pei-Zhan's points. 11 chief examiners arrived to cast their votes. 5 to 5, 1 vote remained. I looked toward the refined gentleman seated at the head, my heart sinking. Jiao Yongxi, the princess's consort. Rumor had it this consort was utterly devoted to the princess. If she had ever complained about me in his presence, I clenched my fists, worried Jiao Yongxi would let personal feelings influence his vote. Jiao Yongxi smiled faintly, looking at me, his voice clear. "Miss, you are exceptionally intelligent and possess remarkable courage. I cast my vote for you." With that, he placed his bamboo tablet into the container marked with my name, his eyes full of admiration. Pei-Zhan's expression darkened. The weight on my heart finally lifted. I bowed to Jiao Yongxi. "Thank you for your praise, my lord." Just as I exhaled in relief, thinking I'd finally won this battle, I believe Miss Shen speaks nothing but nonsense. If she becomes Third Sister's tutor, she'll surely teach Third Sister to abuse her power and behave tyrannically. Moreover, she comes from lowly merchant stock and shamelessly seduces men. How could such a woman be fit to educate Third Sister? The eldest princess swept in with an air of authority, glaring venomously at Jiao Yongxi before looking at me with contempt. I cast my vote for Master Pei. "Ah, what is the matter, Prefect? Do you think I am not qualified to vote? I am a princess, Third Sister's elder sister, and my mother is the paragon of all women in the realm. Tell me, Prefect, can I vote or not?" Though the princess addressed the prefect, her words were aimed at me, her expression triumphant and smug. "You can, of course you can. In that case, it is a tie. Then I declare the women's official examination results unchanged." The prefect, unwilling to offend the princess, obediently announced the verdict. He didn't realize that what he so casually pronounced spelled utter catastrophe for me. My face turned deathly pale as my mind raced for a solution. At the same time, I waited for that person to arrive. I organized my arguments. About to speak in my own defense, a light laugh rang out. I am merely trying to find a suitable tutor for my daughter. Why all this fuss? A stunningly beautiful, richly dressed woman entered on the arm of an elderly maidservant, moving with graceful dignity. I immediately knelt in greeting. All the officials followed suit, and even the haughty princess reluctantly lowered her head and murmured, "Imperial consort." This was Consort Jiao, beloved by the emperor, powerful enough to rival the empress herself. I breathed a sigh of relief. The silver I'd spent had been worthwhile. The message had successfully reached this noble personage. Consort Jiao ignored the others, looking me up and down with a smile. During the earlier interview rounds, I watched from behind the screen and took a liking to you. Who knew that when the results came out, you weren't first? And today there is all this excitement. Naturally, I had to come see for myself. With the emperor's permission, I may choose the third princess's tutor myself. I find you quite agreeable, you'll do. Joy flooded my heart, though I maintained composure on the surface, kowtowing sincerely in gratitude. The princess's face turned black with fury. Imperial consort, this vile woman is unworthy. The consort cut her off coolly, Changyi. The second and third place candidates were both your plants. I won't hold that against you this time, but if it happens again, don't blame me for being unkind. Your little schemes can't fool me. The princess's face alternated between shades of black and white. The consort then cast a meaningful glance at Peijan, and Master Pei altering examination results at the last minute. If Miss Shen hadn't said you were retaliating for her rejection, I might have thought you and the princess shared such deep sibling affection that you'd disregard fairness to plant someone beside my daughter. Peijan's face cycled through shades of green and white as he attempted to explain. I did not, but the consort had no time for him. She instructed me to enter the palace the following day for an audience, then turned and departed on the maidservant's arm. The day I entered the palace wearing the official Kuju robe issued by the palace was also the day I moved out of the Duke's manor. Reflecting on the 3 months I'd lodged there, I had competed in everything: talents, culinary skills, embroidery, striving to display my abilities. Yet, what ultimately won the old matriarch's favor was my resolute decisiveness in handling affairs. I was deeply grateful to this venerable lady for appreciating me regardless of my birth. After bidding her a solemn farewell, I gathered my belongings and stepped through the Duke's manor gates. To my surprise, Peijan was waiting outside. Seeing me, he strode forward in several quick steps, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Worthy of you, indeed. Such deep scheming, you actually managed to establish connections with the imperial consort. I laughed coldly. Since Master Pei knows my character, you should keep your distance. Otherwise, should I scheme against you one day, don't blame me. I made to leave, but he blocked my path, his expression frighteningly dark. I've already sent someone to Pingjiang to propose marriage. My head snapped up. What did you say? Pingjiang was my hometown. Peijan stared at me. You went to such lengths, determined to pass the examination. Wasn't it because in our previous life, I looked down on your origins and belittled you at every turn? Now you've succeeded. I'll follow the 3 letters and 6 rites, offer generous betrothal gifts, and marry you properly. Are you satisfied? I laughed bitterly. My mind flashed back to our previous life's wedding ceremony. When he heard the princess had gotten drunk at a pleasure house and nearly been violated by scoundrels, he immediately tried to abandon me at the altar. Had the old matriarch not forcibly held him there to complete the ceremony, I would have become the laughingstock of the entire capital. Afterwards, he resented me for it. On our wedding night, he stayed at the princess's manor and didn't return. Since he'd brought up our previous life, I didn't mind tearing away the last veneer of civility between us. My lips curved upward as I looked directly at P. Jean. What makes you think I still want to marry you? Doesn't Master P know that, in our previous life, you personally fed me the poison that killed me? P. Jean's pupils contracted sharply. What are you saying? I am saying the medicine you personally brewed for me was slow-acting poison arranged by the princess. I spoke dispassionately. Remembering those final years of my previous life, my body inexplicably weak and aching, which I attributed to overwork. At that time, Peijan's attitude toward me had gradually softened. So when he personally prepared medicine for me, I was moved beyond words and never suspected anything. After my death, watching Peijan and the princess in their tender intimacy, I hated myself, hated my own stupidity. Love wrapped around poison, deadly arsenic. I had calculated everything so carefully, yet let down my guard only with Peijan. No, impossible. Peijan's body swayed, his voice trembling. Chang'e is kind-hearted. How could she do such a thing? He steadied himself. You must be jealous and spiteful, deliberately slandering her. Rage and bitter laughter rose within me, watching him react exactly as he had in our previous life. His first instinct always to defend his precious beloved, no matter the circumstances. Old grievances surged up one after another. A tidal wave of hatred engulfed me. I raised my hand and struck him across the face with all my strength. Slap. Peijan's body went rigid. I looked at the vivid red handprint on his face and felt an inexplicable satisfaction. Peijan, whether you believe what happened in our previous life is irrelevant to me. But the moment I learnt I was murdered by you and the princess, I swore that if I had another life, we would never meet again. If we do meet, we can only be enemies. I made no effort to conceal my hatred, staring at him with cold finality. Peijan's lips trembled, a flicker of panic appearing in his eyes. He reached for my sleeve as if trying to grasp a treasure he feared losing. Qingxi, listen to me. Even if Chang'e did poison you, I didn't know it was poison. I stepped back, cutting him off coldly. So what? You may have killed me unintentionally, but during those 10 years of marriage, you treated me with nothing but coldness. I came from humble origins and walked on eggshells in the Duke's manor. I devoted myself entirely to you, yet you always stood with others to criticize me. Everything was always my fault. Later, I gave up hoping you'd love or cherish me. I only wanted to bear a legitimate son to secure my position in the manor. But what did you do? Time and again I swallowed my pride, cast aside my dignity to approach you, and time and again you recoiled in disgust. And your beloved she humiliated me repeatedly. At the flower banquet, she slapped me without reason. At the literary gathering, she poured tea on me. You defended her every single time. Even that time when she clearly pushed me into the lake, you accused me of trying to frame her. You made me kneel for 3 days and nights at the princess's manor, soaked and bedraggled. The past was endless, impossible to recount fully. I closed my eyes, suppressing the unwillingness and hatred churning in my chest, and said quietly, Peijan, tell me, why would I ever marry someone like you? Abandon this fantasy. I'd rather climb mountains of blades and descend into seas of fire alone than marry you. Peijan looked as if his soul had been ripped away. Seeing me turn to leave, he grabbed my sleeve, his voice hoarse. It is not what you think. He seemed desperate to explain, yet unable to find the words. I had no desire to entangle with him further. I pushed him away and boarded my carriage. Half an hour later, the Vermilion Palace walls gradually came into view. The myriad emotions in my heart had slowly dissipated. Gazing at the imposing walls before me, I exhaled deeply, In this life, I wanted no romantic love. I wanted power. When I met the third princess, she was scrambling up a tree to retrieve a kite caught in the branches. The palace attendants were beside themselves with anxiety, frantically trying to dissuade her. But the princess, her small face full of rebellion, paid them no heed. Seeing me arrive, an attendant sighed with relief. "Teacher Shen, please talk some sense into Her Highness." I looked up, raising an eyebrow at the little girl halfway up the trunk. "Are you going to forbid me from climbing too?" The third princess frowned, her dark eyes fixed on me. I smiled and shook my head. "Your Highness may retrieve your kite as you please. I'll have them spread nets below so you won't be hurt if you fall." The princess made a face. "I won't fall." I watched the young girl hitch up her skirts and climb the tree, thinking to myself, this is the future empress as a child. Indeed, she is different from other girls. In my previous life, after learning I'd been murdered, my unwilling spirit refused to pass on. I drifted around Peijan and the princess for 10 years, watching their sweet affection later. Chaos descended. The emperor died. Peijan finally achieved his wish and married the princess, until the third princess led armies to pacify the realm and ascended the throne. She purged the empress's faction. The princess died in that upheaval, and Peijan followed his beloved in death. Only then did my resentment begin to fade. And the third princess becoming empress taught me clearly power and status gained through dependence on men could never compare to what one seized through one's own wisdom and iron will. Greetings to the imperial consort and the prince consort. The attendants knelt in unison. I returned to the present and saw Consort Jiao with the refined gentleman beside her, Zhao Yongzi. So he was the consort's younger brother. I greeted them both properly, worried the consort might disapprove of my allowing the princess to climb trees. I prepared to explain. The consort waved her hand dismissively, smiling. "I used to climb trees like that, as a child. I came from common folk. Our family courtyard had a tree, just as tall." Her expression filled with reminiscence. Zhao Yongzi smiled. "If elder sister misses home, why not ask His Majesty to let you return for a visit?" But the consort shook her head, her expression closing off. She said nothing more. Everyone knew that once you entered the palace gates, they were as deep as the sea. Before leaving, Consort Jiao asked me, "Do you know why I chose you over those noblewomen?" Without waiting for my answer, she provided it herself. "Because I believe women confined to inner courtyards can't possibly have the breadth of vision of a girl who traveled north and south with her merchant father since childhood. I rose from a village girl to secure my position as imperial consort. I believe, Shen Qingqi, that you too can carve out your own domain." I was deeply moved. If in my previous life I hadn't married Peijan but chosen this path instead, what scenery might I have witnessed? After taking leave of the consort, I departed alongside Zhao Yongzi. I discovered he was quite entertaining capital gossip. Tales from Jiangnan, everything became fascinating when he recounted it. I couldn't help but smile, until he said, "Tomorrow, I depart for Jinling on official business." My heart lurched, as I suddenly recalled a sensational case from my previous life. The princess's consort, the consort's younger brother, had died on the road to Jinling. According to the investigation, he'd been killed by bandits, remembering he'd helped me once. I couldn't help but warn him. "Lord Zhao, I've heard the route to Pingjiang is unsafe. You must take extra guards and be extremely careful." Zhao Yongzi paused, then smiled and nodded. "Thank you for your concern, miss. What are you two doing?" Several paces away, Peijan's expression was terrifyingly dark. He strode forward, positioning himself between Zhao Yongzi and me, glaring at Zhao with open hostility. Prince Consort, men and women, should maintain proper distance. I ask that you conduct yourself with propriety. I laughed coldly, about to retort, when a palace attendant hurried over. Master Pei, the princess has fallen from her horse and is injured. Please come quickly. Pei Zhan's face changed, his eyes full of concern. He lifted his foot to leave immediately. Zhao Yongzi chuckled lightly. How peculiar, your attendant doesn't inform me the princess's husband when she is injured, but runs to tell Master Pei instead. Pei Zhan froze mid-step, his expression stiffening. In that case, Prince Consort, please return quickly to see if Her Highness is seriously hurt. Zhao Yongzi smiled meaningfully, bid me farewell, and departed. I, too, made to leave, but Pei Zhan blocked my path, staring intently at me. Qingxi, if you are unwilling to marry me now, it doesn't matter. I'll court you anew until the day I win your heart. That Gao fellow from your hometown who wanted to humiliate you, I've already had him crippled. He can harm no one anymore. You needn't worry. And about our previous life, we had many misunderstandings. I can explain them all. Perhaps after hearing me out, you'll forgive me. Ha, belated. Compensation means nothing. Between us, there were no misunderstandings. I had no interest in his explanations. I curved my lips into a smile, looking at him. Actually, making me forgive you is quite simple. I have a solution. Pei Zhan's eyes lit up instantly. Tell me, I can do it. Kill the princess to avenge me, then I'll forgive you. Pei Zhan froze, struggling to speak. You've been reborn. Why cling to matters from our previous life? Moreover, she is an imperial princess. How dare you? How dare you harbor such treasonous thoughts? What is wrong? Master Pei is unwilling. Since you can't bear to part with your beloved, stop pestering me. I smiled sarcastically, ignored him completely, turned and walked away. I would take this revenge myself. Upon returning home, I immediately wrote to my parents, instructing them to refuse the marriage proposal. Over the following months, I entered the palace daily to teach the third princess. Yet, I constantly encountered Pei Zhan everywhere. He never spoke, only watched me from a distance. His behavior didn't anger me, but it infuriated the princess. She frequently came looking for trouble. Unfortunately for her, neither I nor the young third princess were pushovers. The first time the princess tried to slap me, I dodged. The third princess secretly tripped her, sending her sprawling face first. The second time she tried to push me into the lake, the third princess kicked her in instead. We stood at the water's edge, watching the princess flail about pathetically, shouting in unison, "Oh no, the princess has slipped into the water." Every time, the princess came off worse, and Pei Zhan didn't defend his beloved as he had before. He busied himself trying to mediate, attempting to resolve the conflict between the princess and me. But his efforts were futile. The princess not only failed to appreciate them, she looked at me with increasingly venomous eyes. I knew she was preparing to make a lethal move against me, and I was preparing my counterattack. But fate didn't give me that opportunity, because Zhao Yongzi returned. Seeing him back in the capital safe and sound, I breathed a sigh of relief. He smiled, eyes crinkling. Thanks to Miss Shen's warning, I kept my life. As thanks, I'd like to invite you to attend a performance with me. That evening, Zhao Yongzi brought me along with a contingent of officers to kick down the door of a private residence. Official investigation. What met everyone's eyes was a pair of naked bodies entwined together. When people recognized the two faces, they gasped in shock. It was the princess and the Duke's Manor heir, Master Pei. Everyone exchanged bewildered glances, then looked at the Prince Consort who'd led them to this scene, their expressions sympathetic. The princess turned deathly pale, clutching the bedsheet around herself, shrieking, "Get out, all of you, get out." In her panic, she spotted Zhao Yongzi, and her face drained of all color. "You were supposed to be already." Pei Zhan, his face flushed, scrambled up in disarray. Seeing me, his expression changed dramatically. He hastily threw on his clothes and stumbled toward me, desperate to explain. Qingxi, it is not what you think. The princess drugged me. I turned and walked out impassively. What did it have to do with me? He wasn't my husband, yet my heart sang with satisfaction. When no one was looking, I couldn't help but smile. If Pei-Zhan had been unwilling, he had 1,000 ways to guard against the princess. All of this he'd allowed it to happen. The next day, the scandal of the princess's infidelity and her affair with the duke's manor heir spread like wildfire. The entire capital buzzed with the gossip. The emperor was furious and ordered the princess confined to the imperial clan court for reflection. The prince consort, unsatisfied, declared the punishment too light and demanded divorce. The emperor granted it, but the princess showed no remorse. Even commoners knew the imperial daughter had violated wifely virtue. Public opinion grew more damning by the day. Finally, the emperor decreed that the princess should take the tonsure and be confined to a Taoist temple, forbidden to leave. As for Pei-Zhan, he was the victim in this affair. The old matriarch fought with everything she had to protect him. Ultimately, to remove the eyesore, the emperor used the pretext of his corruption in the women's official examination to banish him to Lingnan. The day he departed, his servant found me. Please, miss, go see the master off. He hasn't eaten or drunk for days. He is wasting away. Only when your name is mentioned does he show any reaction. I fell silent for a moment. Under the servant's hopeful gaze, I spoke. Please convey a message to him. From this day forward, we part ways. Strangers on opposite ends of the earth, never to meet again. Several years passed, unable to bear her loneliness. The princess bedded a woodcutter who resembled Pei-Zhan. When discovered, it became another joke circulating among the common folk. Later still, unable to endure the public's condemnation, she took poison and ended her life. Later yet, as chaos engulfed the realm, I followed the third princess to the borderlands to defend our nation. When I heard that Pei-Zhan, unable to withstand the miasmic climate, had died of illness in Lingnan, I was mounted on horseback, surveying the city the third princess had conquered. This would be her era, and mine an era to realize my ambitions. From the judge's bench, everyone. Having reached this conclusion, don't you feel utterly satisfied? What moves me most is our protagonist, Shen Qingxi. She wasn't crushed by her previous life's tragic fate. Instead, she grew stronger through adversity, using her talent and courage to forge her own path to glory. From a despised merchant's daughter to the third princess's tutor, then to a key minister assisting the empress in pacifying the realm, this is true reversal of fortune. Those who once wronged you will receive their due punishment from time itself. What you must do is make yourself stronger. So strong, they can only look up at you.